Alexis Morgan stared out the viewport of the Earthship horizon as it approached the massive space station. The station looked like a giant metal flower floating in space. Alexis felt her heart beat faster. This was it. First contact with the Galactic Conclave. "Nervous?" asked Sam Peters, standing next to her. Sam was the ship's doctor and one of her few friends on board. "A little," she admitted. 4 years studying alien languages, and now I'll finally hear them spoken for real." Alexis had not planned to be here. With her degree in ancient languages and linguistics, she expected to spend her life digging through old ruins on Earth. But when aliens discovered Earth 3 years ago, everything changed. Her skills became valuable in ways no one expected. "Lieutenant Morgan, report to the shuttle bay," came Captain Donovan's voice over the speaker. "We leave for the station in 20 minutes. The human delegation was small, just 6 people. Ambassador William Clark led the group with Captain Lisa Donovan, Security Officer John Reed, Science Officer Ben Martinez, and Alexis as the communications expert. The last member was Frank Wilson, a trade representative. As they boarded the shuttle, Ambassador Clark gave them all a final reminder. "Remember, we represent all of humanity. Be respectful, be humble, but be proud of who we are." The shuttle ride was quiet. Alexis studied her notes one last time. The aliens had given humans translation devices, but she wanted to recognize words if she heard them. The conclave included 7 species: the tall, blue-skinned Viridians who built the station, the insect-like Noxtari, the furry Kellen, and 4 others humans knew little about. The shuttle docked with a soft bump. When the doors opened, they stepped into a hallway with high ceilings and strange symbols carved into stone-like walls. 2 Viridians waited for them. They stood nearly 7 feet tall with smooth blue skin and 4-fingered hands. Their large eyes blinked slowly as they bowed. "Welcome to Viridian Station," said one, the translation coming through small devices on the humans' collars. "I am Senra, station coordinator. Please follow me to the greeting chamber." As they walked through wide hallways, Alexis noticed how other aliens stopped to stare at them. Some pointed, others whispered. She heard something that sounded like laughter. "They're looking at us like we're animals in a zoo," muttered John. The greeting chamber was enormous, a round room with 7 large sections, each decorated with symbols of different alien cultures. Representatives from each species sat in their sections. In the center was a round table with 7 chairs. "And here are the humans," announced a tall Viridian that Alexis guessed was female from her ornate clothing, "the newest species to join our discussions." "Thank you, matriarch," said Ambassador Clark with a respectful bow. "We are honored to represent Earth and humanity." A strange sound came from the section where the Kellen sat. It sounded like snickering. The matriarch gestured to small chairs set up in an empty section. "Please be seated. The conclave welcomes you as observers today. Perhaps in time, you will earn a place at the central table." As the meeting began, Alexis tried to focus on the translations coming through her device. The aliens discussed trade routes, resource sharing, and border disputes. But she kept noticing side glances and what seemed like jokes at their expense. During a break, a tall Kellen approached their group. His body was covered in golden fur, and he had a face that reminded Alexis of a lion. "I am High Counselor Zextal," he said, his voice deep. "I must say it is amusing to have humans join us. Your species has barely mastered simple space travel." Ambassador Clark smiled politely. "We have much to learn, Counselor, but humans are quick students." "Indeed," said Zextal. "Like watching a child learn to walk. Entertaining, but hardly impressive." Before Clark could respond, a bell sounded, calling everyone back to their seats. The next part of the meeting involved each species sharing cultural information. When it was Earth's turn, Ambassador Clark showed images of human art, played music, and described Earth's diverse cultures. "Primitive but charming," said one of the other aliens, causing several others to make sounds like laughter. Alexis felt her face grow hot with embarrassment and anger. She looked down at her tablet where she had been taking notes. That's when She noticed something strange about the symbols carved into the wall near her seat. They looked familiar somehow. As the meeting continued, she kept glancing at the symbols. They reminded her of something she had studied years ago, ancient Sumerian cuneiform writing. Not exactly the same, but similar patterns and structure. Later, that evening, the human delegation was shown to their quarters, a set of rooms in the visitors' wing of the station. "Well, that was humiliating," said Frank as soon as they were alone. "They treated us like children." "We expected this," said Ambassador Clark. "We are new to them. We need to be patient." While the others discussed the day's events, Alexis walked around their common room, examining the wall carvings more carefully. There were more of the strange symbols here. "Captain," she said suddenly, "I need to take pictures of these symbols." Captain Donovan looked surprised. "Why?" "Because I think I've seen them before," Alexis said, "or something very similar, in ancient human languages." "That's impossible," said Ben. "These aliens never visited Earth until 3 years ago." "I know. It sounds crazy," Alexis replied, taking pictures with her tablet. "But these symbols are structured like Proto-Sumerian writing from over 5,000 years ago." Ambassador Clark frowned. "Are you sure?" "No," Alexis admitted. "But I need to study them more closely. There's something here we're missing." That night, while the others slept, Alexis sat in her room comparing the alien symbols to images of ancient Earth writing in her database. The similarities were too strong to be coincidence. Some of the basic shapes and patterns were almost identical. "How is this possible?" she whispered to herself. A memory came back to her. Something the Kellen had said when mocking them. He had called humans children learning to walk. Like children, Alexis felt a chill run down her spine as a wild idea formed in her mind. What if humans weren't just some random species the aliens had discovered? What if there was a connection no one had realized yet? She stayed up all night working and comparing. By morning, she was sure of one thing. The aliens might be mocking humans now, but they had no idea what she was beginning to discover. And it would change everything. Alexis didn't tell the others right away. She needed more proof. The next morning, she joined the human delegation for breakfast in their shared quarters. "You look tired," said Sam, passing her a cup of coffee. "I was up late studying those wall symbols," she said quietly. Ambassador Clark looked up from his meal. "Find anything interesting?" Alexis hesitated. "Maybe. I need more time." Their second day at the conclave was no better than the first. The aliens continued to treat the humans with barely hidden amusement. During one discussion about space travel technology, a Noxtari representative interrupted Captain Donovan's presentation. "Your propulsion systems are so quaint," the insect-like alien said, its voice clicking through the translator. "Like watching someone try to cross an ocean using a log as a boat." The room filled with sounds that the translators didn't convert, but Alexis recognized as laughter. John Reed, their security officer, stood up. "We may be new to space travel compared to you, but humans achieved in 100 years what took some of your species thousands." The room went silent. Ambassador Clark gave John a warning look. A tall Noxtari with greenish markings approached John. "Bold words from a species who doesn't even know the origin story." "What origin story?" John asked. The Noxtari's compound eyes seemed to glitter with amusement. "Exactly. You speak like children who have forgotten their parents' names." The comment struck Alexis like a physical blow. It matched her growing theory too well. That night, she sent a message to Earth, to her old professor, Dr. Alan Walsh. She attached images of the alien symbols and requested copies of the oldest known human writing samples. It would take days for her message to reach Earth and for Dr. Walsh to respond, but she had to know if her suspicions were correct. During the following days, Alexis paid close attention to the alien languages. Even through the translators, she began noticing patterns in their speech that reminded her of ancient human language structures. It wasn't just the written symbols. Something about the very way they formed sentences echoed humanity's oldest languages. 5 days after sending her message, Alexis received Dr. Walsh's reply. He had sent her digital copies of the oldest known human texts, Sumerian tablets, Egyptian hieroglyphics, ancient Chinese oracle bones, and more. This is fascinating. Alexis, his message read, the similarities you've noticed aren't like anything we've seen before. If these really are alien symbols, we need to talk about what this means. Alexis spent every free moment comparing the texts. The patterns were undeniable. It wasn't just that the symbols looked similar, the actual language structure was related. She began mapping connections between alien words she heard and ancient human languages. You've been quiet lately, Ambassador Clark said to her after a week. Everything okay? Alexis looked up from her tablet. She had been working so intensely she had barely noticed the others. Sir, I need to speak with you privately, and Captain Donovan too. In Captain Donovan's room, Alexis laid out her evidence. These alien symbols aren't just similar to ancient human languages, they're connected. I think ancient human languages evolved from something related to these alien writing systems. That's impossible, said Captain Donovan, shaking her head. Are you suggesting aliens visited Earth thousands of years ago? Maybe, said Alexis. Or maybe. She hesitated. The idea still seemed too wild to say aloud. Maybe what? Ambassador Clark asked gently. Maybe we're related to them somehow, Alexis said. Think about it. They keep treating us like children, like we're younger versions of themselves. What if there's a reason for that? Captain Donovan looked skeptical. That's a huge leap. Look at this, Alexis said, showing them her tablet. These alien symbols don't just form words, they form sentences describing advanced concepts, star maps, mathematical formulas, and they match patterns in our oldest writing systems. Ancient humans couldn't have invented these. They describe quantum physics and stellar navigation. Ambassador Clark studied her work carefully. If what you're saying is true, this changes everything about how we understand human history. I know it sounds crazy, Alexis admitted, but the evidence keeps pointing in this direction. What's your next step? Asked Captain Donovan. I need access to their historical archives, Alexis said. If there's a connection between humans and these aliens, there might be records of it. The next day, Ambassador Clark formally requested access to the Conclave's historical archives, citing cultural exchange as the reason. The Viridian matriarch approved the request with obvious amusement, as if letting children play with toys they couldn't possibly understand. The archives were housed in a vast chamber deep within the station. Rows of strange devices held what appeared to be records going back thousands of years. A young Viridian named Tella was assigned to help them. These are very old records, Tella explained. Many are from before the Conclave was formed, 10,000 years ago. How far back do your records go? Alexis asked. Our oldest records are from nearly 50,000 years ago, Tella said, from the time of the progenitors. The progenitors? Asked Ambassador Clark. Tella looked surprised. You truly know nothing of galactic history, do you? The progenitors were the first spacefaring race. They taught the other species, guided our development, created the foundation of our civilization. Then they vanished. Alexis felt her heart beating faster. Do you have records of their language? Some, said Tella. Mostly religious texts, some technical manuals. And there are audio recordings, though few can understand them now. The progenitor speech patterns have been lost to time. May we hear these recordings? Alexis asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Tella led them to a small room with a device, in the center. These are sacred artifacts, she warned. Very few are permitted to hear them. She activated the device. A strange voice filled the room, speaking in an unfamiliar language. Unfamiliar, yet somehow recognizable. Alexis closed her eyes and listened. The sounds, the patterns, the rhythm of the speech. It was unlike anything spoken by the current aliens. But to her trained ear, it sounded eerily similar to Proto-Indo-European language patterns. She looked at Ambassador Clark and Captain Donovan. Their faces showed they heard it too. That sounds almost human, whispered Captain Donovan. There, Viridian Guide tilted her head curiously. How strange you would think so. The progenitor language died out long ago. She paused. Though it is said they will return someday speaking the ancient tongue. As they left the archives that evening, Alexis could barely contain her excitement and fear. We need to learn more about these progenitors, she said, because I think we might be connected to them somehow. If you're right, said Ambassador Clark, then we need to be very careful. We don't know how the aliens will react to such a claim. What none of them noticed was the small recording device planted in Ambassador Clark's collar. In her chamber, the Viridian matriarch listened to their conversation, her expression growing more concerned with each word. The next morning, the human delegation was surprised to find the Viridian matriarch waiting in their common room. I trust you found the archives educational, she said, her large eyes studying them carefully. Very much so, Ambassador Clark replied. The history of the conclave is fascinating. The matriarch focused her gaze on Alexis. And what did our linguist find most interesting? Alexis felt a chill. The matriarch knew they were on to something. The progenitor recordings, she answered honestly. The speech patterns were unexpected. Indeed, said the matriarch. Few find them worth studying these days. She paused. I've granted your delegation expanded access to the historical records. Study what you wish. After she left, Captain Donovan frowned. Why would she do that? Either she doesn't see us as a threat, said Ambassador Clark, or she wants to know exactly what we're looking for. They returned to the archives, where they were now free to explore without supervision. Alexis focused on finding more information about the progenitors while Dr. Kate Summers, their xenobiologist, joined them to study the biological records. Look at this, Kate said, calling them over to a display. According to these records, the progenitors physically resembled the Viridians but were smaller, about our size. Alexis found records describing the progenitors as the founders of galactic civilization who lifted the younger races to the stars. They were revered almost as gods by the current alien species. The records showed they had vanished approximately 50,000 years ago. No explanation for why they disappeared. Asked Ambassador Clark. Nothing clear, said Alexis. Some records suggest they ascended beyond physical form. Others say they were destroyed by some catastrophe. But all the records agree on one thing. The progenitors promised they would return someday. Kate pointed to another record. This might explain why the aliens look down on us. According to this, no species has ever claimed direct descent from the progenitors. It would be considered the highest blasphemy. But what if it's true? Alexis asked quietly. What if humans are somehow related to the progenitors? They spent days in the archives, gathering more evidence. Alexis collected every sample of progenitor, language she could find, and compared it to ancient human languages. The similarities were too strong to ignore. Word patterns, sentence structures, even certain sounds were preserved in ancient human tongues. Kate discovered something equally important. Genetic records suggesting the progenitor's DNA structure had elements similar to human DNA, unlike any current alien species. It's as if humans preserved aspects of progenitor biology and language that the other species lost over time, Kate explained. But how is that possible? Alexis had a theory forming. What if Earth was some kind of preserve? A place where they kept a population isolated from the rest of the galaxy? Maybe an experiment or a backup plan. Ambassador Clark seemed troubled. If you're right, the political implications are enormous. We need more proof, said Captain Donovan. And we need to be careful how we present this. Meanwhile, the regular conclave meetings continued. The other species still treated humans with amusement or disdain, unaware of what the human delegation was discovering. John Reed, who hadn't been told the full extent of their findings, grew increasingly frustrated with the aliens' attitudes. During one particularly tense exchange, a Kellan representative called humans temporary visitors to the galactic community. John stood up. You might be surprised how permanent our place here becomes. The Kellan laughed. Bold words for a species that can barely reach its own moon. That evening, Alexis made a breakthrough. She had been working with the ship's AI to analyze, the progenitor language recordings and compare them to every human language in their database. I think I can reconstruct parts of the progenitor language, she told the others excitedly. Not perfectly, but enough to try speaking it. Is that wise? Asked Captain Donovan. We don't know how they'll react. We need to know the truth, Alexis insisted. And this might be the only way to prove it. Ambassador Clark considered this. Prepare your reconstruction, but don't use it yet. We need the right moment. That night, as Alexis worked in her room, there was a soft knock at her door. It was Tella, the young Viridian who had first helped them in the archives. May I speak with you privately? Tella asked, glancing nervously down the hall. Alexis let her in. Tella seemed frightened. The matriarch knows what you're researching, Tella said quietly. She's been watching your work in the archives. We haven't done anything wrong, Alexis said. You don't understand, Tella replied. There are prophecies about the progenitor's return. Old stories say they will come back speaking the ancient tongue, and when they do, the conclave will enter a new age. She paused. Some welcome this idea. Others fear it. And which side is the matriarch on? Alexis asked. I don't know, Tella admitted. But there's a formal conclave session tomorrow. All 7 species will be present to vote on whether humans should be granted observer status. You should be careful about any claims you make. After Tella left, Alexis called the others to her room and told them what she had learned. This changes things, said Ambassador Clark. If they're already suspicious, we might not get another chance. So what do we do? Asked Kate. Alexis took a deep breath. I've reconstructed enough of the progenitor language to make a simple address. Let me speak to the conclave tomorrow. Captain Donovan looked concerned. You're talking about claiming that humans are descended from the progenitors. Based on the archives, that's like walking into a church and claiming to be related to their God. We need to know the truth, Alexis said firmly, and they need to hear it. The next morning, the human delegation prepared for the conclave session. As they walked to the great chamber, Ambassador Clark turned to Alexis. Are you sure about this? He asked quietly. No, Alexis admitted. But everything I've found points to the same conclusion. Humans and the progenitors are connected somehow. The other species need to know. The conclave chamber was filled with representatives from all 7 alien species. The Viridian matriarch called the session to order and announced the first item of business, whether to grant humans official observer status. Before we vote, said High Counselor Zextal of the Kellen, I would like to hear what these humans have contributed to galactic knowledge in their brief time here. Ambassador Clark stood. Thank you, Counselor. If the conclave permits, I would like my linguistics expert, Alexis Morgan, to address this assembly. The matriarch nodded, her expression unreadable. We will hear her. Alexis walked to the center of the chamber, her heart pounding. In her hand was a small tablet containing her notes on the reconstructed progenitor language. Everything they had discovered had led to this moment. She looked around at the alien faces, some curious, some dismissive, none aware of what she was about to say. Then she began to speak, not in English, but in the ancient tongue of the progenitors. The sounds that came from Alexis's mouth were unlike anything the human delegation had ever heard her practice. Her voice took on a musical quality, rising and falling in strange patterns. The words flowed together in ways that seemed impossible for a human throat to produce. The effect on the aliens was immediate and shocking. The chamber fell completely silent. The universal translators couldn't interpret her words, but the aliens clearly understood. The Viridian matriarch rose from her seat, her blue skin turning pale. The Noxtari representatives lowered their heads in what looked like a bow. One of the older Kellen actually fell from his chair. Alexis continued reciting what she believed was a traditional progenitor greeting. Her research suggested it translated roughly to, "From the stars we came to the stars we return. We greet those who follow in our path." When she finished, the silence continued for several long seconds. Then the chamber erupted in chaos. Aliens were shouting, some pointing at the humans, others backing away as if afraid. The matriarch raised her four-fingered hands and the room gradually quieted. She approached Alexis slowly, her steps careful, almost reverent. "How can this be?" the matriarch asked, her voice trembling slightly. "The sacred tongue has not been spoken in 50 millennia. Alexis swallowed hard. "We have reason to believe that humans are descendants of those you call the progenitors." A fresh wave of murmurs swept through the chamber. "Impossible," shouted High Counselor Zextel. "These primitives claim the bloodline of the ancients?" "Let her explain," the matriarch said, her eyes never leaving Alexis. Alexis turned to face the entire assembly. "Our research in your archives shows striking similarities between progenitor language patterns and ancient human languages. DNA records show biological connections too. We believe Earth may have been a place where a progenitor population was isolated from the rest of galactic society. Over thousands of years we evolved separately, but our languages preserved elements of the original progenitor speech." Ambassador Clark stepped forward. "We don't know exactly why our ancestors were separated from galactic society, but the evidence suggests humans are carrying the legacy of the progenitors." "This is blasphemy," Zextel shouted. "No species may claim direct descent from the progenitors." "We're not claiming anything," Captain Donovan said firmly. "We're presenting evidence and seeking the truth, just as any scientist would." The matriarch turned to address the chamber. "I have been monitoring the humans' research. Their findings are troubling, but we cannot dismiss them without investigation." She faced the human delegation again. "If what you claim is true, it would change the very foundation of the conclave. There are ancient prophecies about the return of the progenitors. Some welcome this, others fear it." "We don't want to disrupt the conclave," Ambassador Clark assured her. "We simply want to understand our place in the galaxy." "It may not be that simple," the matriarch replied. "Those who left remains of their legacy did so for a reason. A direct line to the progenitors would give humans a claim to authority that no other species possesses." Alexis felt a chill at these words. The humans didn't want power over the other species. They just wanted answers. The matriarch called for an emergency council of the elder representatives from each species. The human delegation was escorted back to their quarters to wait for a decision. "Well, that went about as well as a grenade in a fuel tank," John said once they were alone. "What did you expect?" Captain Donovan asked. "We just told them we might be related to their gods." Alexis paced the room. "I didn't expect such a strong reaction. The way they looked at us, it was like they were seeing ghosts." "Did you see the Noxtari delegates?" asked Kate. "They were actually bowing to us." Ambassador Clark looked troubled. "That's what worries me. If some species start treating humans as special because of this connection, it could create dangerous divisions in the conclave." Hours passed with no word from the council. The humans grew restless. "What do you think they're deciding?" Sam asked. "Whether to welcome us as long-lost relatives or space us out an airlock," John muttered. Finally, there was a chime at their door. Tella entered, looking nervous. "The council has reached a decision," she said. "You are summoned to the sacred chamber." "Sacred chamber?" Ambassador Clark asked. "Not the main conclave hall?" "No," Tella replied. "This is unusual. The sacred chamber is normally reserved for religious ceremonies." The human delegation followed Tella through parts of the station they hadn't seen before. The walls here were made of actual stone, not the metallic materials used elsewhere. The carvings were more elaborate, clearly ancient in origin. The sacred chamber was smaller than the main hall, with a domed ceiling painted to look like a starfield. 7 tall chairs formed a circle in the center, with the matriarch and representatives from the other species already seated. "Approach," the matriarch said. The humans walked to the center of the circle. "We have discussed your claims at length," the matriarch began. "Some believe you, others do not. But all agree this matter must be investigated further." A tall, spindly alien that Alexis recognized as a Mithrai elder stood. "If humans truly carry the blood of the progenitors, ancient prophecies say they will lead the conclave into a new age of enlightenment. Or destruction. added Zextal darkly. The prophecies are not clear on which? The matriarch nodded. There is much we do not know about the progenitors' plans or why they may have isolated a population on Earth. But we cannot ignore the evidence you have presented. She looked directly at Alexis. There are tests, sacred rituals, that might confirm or disprove your claims. Ancient technologies that respond only to progenitor biology. What kind of tests? Captain Donovan asked warily. Nothing harmful, the matriarch assured them. But they must be performed at the Temple of Ascension, on the Viridian homeworld. Ambassador, Clark exchanged glances with the others. We would need to consult with our government before agreeing to leave the station. Of course, the matriarch said. But know this, whether you are truly of progenitor lineage or not, your presence has already changed the conclave forever. As they left the sacred chamber, Alexis noticed how differently the aliens looked at them now. The mockery was gone, replaced by curiosity, reverence, or fear. What have we started? She whispered to Ambassador Clark. The truth, he replied quietly. Whatever that turns out to be. Back in their quarters, Captain Donovan opened a secure channel to Earth. We need to report this immediately. The political implications are enormous. But what do we tell them? Asked Alexis. That humans might be descendants of an ancient alien race? That some aliens now want to worship us while others fear us? Ambassador Clark looked thoughtful. We tell them exactly what we found, and we recommend proceeding with caution. Very, very slowly. That night, Alexis stood alone by the viewport, looking out at the stars. If humans truly were connected to the progenitors, what did that mean for Earth's future? And what secrets might they discover on the Viridian homeworld? More importantly, why had the progenitors separated humans from the rest of galactic society? Was it to protect them or to protect the galaxy from them? 3 weeks later, the human delegation was joined by several more specialists from Earth. Dr. Alan Walsh, Alexis's former professor, was among them. Earth had taken the news of their discoveries with shock, excitement, and caution. Now they stood on the surface of the Viridian homeworld, looking up at the Temple of Ascension. The massive structure was built into the side of a mountain, its entrance flanked by huge stone statues. They look almost human, Dr. Walsh whispered, studying the statues. But not quite. The temple interior was cool and dim, lit by glowing crystals embedded in the walls. The ceiling soared hundreds of feet above them. Carvings covered every surface, showing what appeared to be the history of the progenitors. The matriarch led them to a circular chamber at the heart of the temple. In the center stood a simple pedestal with a glowing orb. This is the sphere of recognition, she explained. It is said to contain the essence of the progenitors. It responds only to their touch. Alexis looked at Ambassador Clark, who nodded. They had discussed this moment extensively. If the sphere responded to human touch, it would confirm their theory. Many have tried to activate it over the millennia. The matriarch continued. None have succeeded. Representatives from all 7 alien species watched from the edges of the chamber. Some looked hopeful, others fearful. Alexis stepped forward. As the one who had discovered the connection and spoken the ancient language, she had been chosen for this moment. Whatever happens, Ambassador Clark said quietly, remember we came seeking knowledge, not power. Alexis nodded and approached the pedestal. The orb glowed with a soft blue light. She took a deep breath and placed her hand on it. For a second, nothing happened. Then the orb's color changed from blue to gold. Light shot upward from it, forming a holographic display that filled the chamber. Strange symbols appeared in the air along with images of stars, planets, and what looked like DNA strands. A voice spoke in the progenitor language. Alexis understood only fragments, but enough to grasp the message. It's some kind of recording, she said. A message left for... She hesitated. For us. The matriarch stepped closer, her eyes wide. The sphere has awakened. After 50,000 years, more images appeared. a planet that was clearly Earth and what appeared to be early humans. Then came scenes of destruction, massive ships fleeing a great disaster. "I think I understand," Alexis said slowly. "The progenitors faced some kind of catastrophe. They fled to different worlds. One group came to Earth." The voice continued, and Alexis listened carefully. "They changed themselves," she translated haltingly, "to survive Earth's conditions. Over time, they forgot their origins." Dr. Walsh studied the DNA images floating above them. They modified their genetics to adapt to Earth. Over thousands of generations, they became human. The final images showed stars and galaxies, with pathways connecting them. Then the message ended, and the orb returned to its blue glow. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then the matriarch spoke. "The message confirms what you claimed. Humans carry the legacy of the progenitors. You are not their descendants. You are what they became." High Counselor Zextel stepped forward. "If this is true, then the prophecies are fulfilled. The progenitors have returned as promised." "Not as you expected, though," said Ambassador Clark. "We didn't come to claim authority or power. We came seeking friendship and knowledge." "Yet the knowledge you bring changes everything," said the matriarch. "For millennia, we have guided the younger races, believing ourselves to be carrying on the progenitors' work. Now we find that humans, who we treated as children, may carry more of their legacy than any of us." "What happens now?" asked Captain Donovan. The matriarch looked thoughtful. "That is for the conclave to decide, but I believe we should begin anew, not as teachers and students, but as equals. There is much humans can learn from us about the stars, and perhaps much we can learn from you about the progenitors." The news spread quickly through the conclave. Some species immediately pledged allegiance to humans as the children of the progenitors. Others reacted with suspicion and fear. If humans truly carried the legacy of the galaxy's founder race, what power might they reclaim? 2 days later, Ambassador Clark addressed a special session of the conclave. Representatives from all 7 alien species attended, along with the expanded human delegation. "We understand the shock our discovery has caused," Clark began. "For centuries you looked to the stars wondering if the progenitors would return. You never imagined they had been on a small blue planet all along, forgetting who they once were." He paused, looking around the chamber. "But we are not here to claim any special authority. We don't seek worship or dominance. We simply want acceptance as equals, and the chance to learn about our forgotten heritage." "What do you propose?" asked the matriarch. "A joint research initiative," Clark replied. "Humans and all conclave species working together to understand the progenitors' legacy, to discover why they separated humans from galactic society, and what we might learn from each other now." The matriarch nodded slowly. "This seems wise, but I must warn you, the progenitors were not just our benefactors. They were also fearsome in their power. There may be reasons they chose to isolate your kind." "All the more reason to proceed carefully together," said Clark. The vote was taken. 6 of the 7 species agreed to the proposal. Only the Kellen abstained, still uncertain about humanity's new role. As the human delegation prepared to return to Earth with news that would forever change humanity's understanding of its place in the universe, Alexis stood on an observation deck of the Viridian space station. In her hand was a small clay tablet, a gift from Dr. Walsh. It contained Sumerian cuneiform writing, now recognized as a child's attempt to write in the language of the stars. Captain Donovan joined her. "How does it feel to have rewritten human history?" Alexis smiled. "Humbling. We thought we were alone, looking up at the stars and wondering if anyone was out there. Now we know we came from those stars ourselves. Do you think the progenitors, our ancestors, planned for this? For us to return to space and find the other species?" "Maybe," Alexis said. "Or maybe they just hoped we would survive. Whatever happened to the rest of them?" She looked out at the stars shining like distant homes. "We aren't alone, and we never were. Now we have to figure out what that means for our future." Across the station, in other chambers, The alien representatives were having similar conversations. The galaxy had changed forever. The children of the stars had returned home speaking the lost language of their ancestors, and no one, human or alien, could predict what would happen next.